You probably already know that on the Halo 3 map Isolation, over time, the flood will slowly infect the grass. Or in Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary, on the screens, you can actually see references to Spartan Linda. But what about the even more obscure and even more rare details from the Halo franchise you most likely missed, even if you are a massive Halo fan? Well, these are 25 minutes of obscure Halo details you probably ended up missing. But before we get into the rest of the video, today's sponsor is Bespoke Post. Bespoke Post is a monthly membership club that delivers you a box of awesome every month with top tier goods. It's free to join and you can actually skip a month or cancel at any time. 90% of the products come from small brands, many of which are based right here in the US. For example, the trail box that they hooked us up with has this gut hook knife made by Real Simple Tools in Kemah, Texas. They introduced their members to products like outdoor gear, barware, home and kitchen goods, clothing, and more every single month, and it's all based on a preference quiz that you fill out when you sign up. Every box of awesome has around $70 worth of goods, while only costing a fraction of that value. You can preview your personal box before it's shipped and decide if you want to keep it, swap it, or skip the month entirely at no charge. You only pay for what you want. Their box lineup also constantly changes each month, which is really cool. As mentioned before, they sent us their trail box that comes with a gut hook knife, this cool field box, the book Surviving the Great Outdoors by Brendan Leonard, a pocket saw with nylon straps, and paracord bracelet. And they also sent us the Weekender box that comes with this very practical and sleek looking Weekender bag to fit all your travel items for your shorter trips. Now, if any of this sounds interesting to you, you can get 20% off your first box of awesome by clicking the link in the description and entering RocketSloth20 at checkout, or going to bespokepost.com/RocketSloth20. Make sure after you receive your first box of awesome, maybe send us a picture on Twitter. To celebrate 10 years since the release of the original Halo Combat Evolved, alongside Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary was a special anniversary map pack created for Halo Reach. This map pack chose 6 classic Halo maps to be remade and added into Halo Reach. However, every single one of these maps actually has a secret Easter egg where in some place or another you can find a picture or an image of the original version of the map in the game. On top of Red Base in Battle Canyon, you can find this screenshot of Beaver Creek. On Breakneck, facing the water, you can find this screenshot of Headlong. On High Noon, over by the Blue Base, you can find a screenshot of Hang 'em High. On Penance, if you go upstairs by this dark pipe, you can find the screenshot of Damnation. Upstairs in Red Base on Ridgeline, you can find the screenshot of Timberland, not that Timberland, the map Timberland. And on Solitary, under this broken window, you can see a screenshot of the original map Prisoner. Now, this actually isn't the only time we've ever seen this Easter egg exist. Matter of fact, all the way back in the Halo 2 days, the level Tombstone had a screenshot of Hang 'em High, which Tombstone was a remake of. Now, some of you may have known this one, and I don't know how I went 11 years without noticing this, but don't worry, even if you knew this one, some of these on this list are going to surprise you still. Lord Hood is technically a fleet admiral, though he only wears 4 stars on his shoulder, which is the insignia of just an admiral, instead of the 5 stars that a fleet admiral would normally wear. On Halo Reach's New Alexandria, if you are flying your Falcon over to the top of the Synoviet building, you can actually find a couple of newspapers that are lined up on the rooftop here, and they make out to be a smiley face. On the Halo Reach Anniversary Map Pack Map Penance, there is a grunt in a barrel that will occasionally fall off the waterfall. The very first bad word in the entire Halo franchise is in Halo Combat Evolved when Sergeant Johnson is opening up the cutscene and says, damn right I am.
Damn right I am. Now move it out. Double time.
And then the final bad word in the entire Halo franchise is actually just from a single grunt in Halo Infinite from one of the propaganda towers who says that Master Chief got his ass kicked in front of everybody.
I'm actually starting to feel sorry for the big green dork. I mean, he got his ass kicked in front of everybody. Most of his friends are dead. His own pets hate him. I don't know if he has pets, but if he does, they definitely hate him.
There's been a lot of fans over time who have pointed out the similarities between Halo and Doom. One thing that's really interesting is that they both have 4 letters in their title. One is about literally traveling to hell, and the other one is about traveling to an ancient ring world, Halo, which already has some angelic undertones to the term, which is a structure essentially created by gods. There's got to be some clever connection there. In the Halo multiplayer, throughout all of the main Halo games, you've never been allowed to actually make your Spartan look exactly the same way as Master Chief. There was never the exact shade of green that's most commonly seen in Halo 3, for example, where if you wanted to look like Chief, the best you could do is this light green color. You might not have known this, but in most Halo games, the ghosts are actually susceptible in this one tiny little spot to a one-shot automatic kill. It's funny when people don't know that this is a thing across Halo games and then are really confused when they randomly just explode when someone actually does land that shot. In Halo 3, we are introduced to transport hogs, though Master Chief and the elites can't actually ride in the back seat. However, in Halo 3 ODST and MCC, 3 ODSTs can jump into the back of the transport hog because their size is so much smaller than a Spartan or elites. The legendary logo for legendary difficulty actually has a skull of an elite's head, but if you look at the skull, it doesn't actually line up to what an elite's head even looks like. Even weirder, in Halo 2, the Arbiter has this on his actual shoulder. It still looked really badass though. In Halo 3, you might have seen this mountain in the background on Sierra 117. That's actually Mount Kilimanjaro in real life. And this is a common one if you're a long-time Halo fan, but maybe if you were a little newer, you might have missed it. But this boat on the Storm is shaped like Master Chief's helmet. The commando rifle in Halo Infinite has a white line going downwards on the handrail. It's actually a small callback to the design of the Halo 5 AR, which has that same white line. The track Dust and Echoes plays during the final cutscene on the level The Maw in Halo Combat Evolved. But did you know that the reversed strings play in the opening cutscene on the library when the activation index key is shown for the first time? Plus, an extended version of the opening of the song played during the mid-level cutscene on keys.
Data in their networks. The ring has some kind of deep religious significance. If I'm analyzing this correctly,
the Halo Infinite achievement Make a Little More Noise, which you can unlock for grabbing a power weapon in the Halo Infinite tutorial area, is actually a quote from Cortana in Halo 2 on the level Delta Halo.
Could we possibly make any more noise? I guess so.
This one's kind of weird, but the Killtastrophe medal, which was introduced in Halo 3, which is for killing 8 opponents in 4 seconds, has 8 stars on it, or at least in most Halos it does. That makes sense, but there are 2 occasions where it actually didn't. In Halo Spartan Assault, there's only 7 stars on it, and in Halo Infinite, there's only 2 stars. And yes, both of these are still for getting 8 kills. On the Halo Reach level, the Spire, the bottom of the Spire actually resembles a grouping of parked Banshees when viewed from a certain angle. Okay, normally the bubble shield can protect you from a shot from a Spartan laser, but if you deploy it while riding on an elephant, it'll actually go right through the bubble shield. But if you have like 5 bubble shields at the same time, it'll actually protect you again. Also, the elephant's really interesting. On Sandbox, the Halo 3 Forge level, you can drive this baby out of bounds and the Guardians can try at all of their might to kill you, and if you're in the driver's spot, you probably are actually safe. It's really interesting. The Halo Reach map Anchor 9 has this engine service module in Forge that is unique to the map. This object was later added into Forge World and MCC in one of the updates later on. Okay, this one's silly, but these Forerunner trees in Halo 4 are officially called Ugg Parasa trees, which Ugg Parasa is an anagram, which is like where it has all the same letters but it's rearranged, for the word asparagus. And honestly, these trees kind of look like asparagus. Clever thinking, 343. Okay, in Halo 2, the level Cairo Station has its name from the station that you're on and where it is placed geographically above, since it's above Cairo, Egypt. But we can actually see the other bases in that level as well, with Malta Station and Athens Station being visible from a distance. And this is interesting because geographically, they are kind of close-ish to Cairo, and it makes sense that this is why these bases have the names that they have. The Halo 5 trailer shows this opening cutscene, but it's actually a censored version of the cutscene itself. When Vale kills an elite, it zooms in so you can't see where her shots actually land. prior to Halo Reach, there was only 2 maps in all of the Halo games that had blue teleporters instead of green teleporters. Those being Halo 2's Gemini and Halo 3's Cold Storage. In Halo Infinite, the announcer that used to say suicide whenever you died was removed and replaced with the term self-destruction instead. Jacob Keyes actually has an ODST tattoo, even though he wasn't an ODST. This is explained in the book Cole Protocol, and it's never really too specific on where this tattoo may be. In Halo 3, on the multiplayer level Valhalla, if you go over to the water section of the level, you may see that there's some fish swimming around in the water. And this is just kind of a small detail not a lot of people know about from here. On the level Kikowani Station in Halo 3 ODST, in the end section of the level, right before you blow up the last squid house that blows everything up, if you look over to the right side of the room, you can see high up on the wall the numbers 2401. Now this could just be a random number thrown here for whatever reason, but 2401 actually has a larger significance across the Halo series. And while we still don't know to this day why 2401 is here specifically in Kikowani Station, we do know for a fact that 2401 shows up multiple times, like the character 2401 Penitent Tangent, who shows up in Halo 2 in that whole like Gravemind cutscene. On the level Crow's Nest, you can actually see the number 2401 again on these generators. And we know Bungie always had an obsession with the number 7, sort of like how the number 343 is 7 to the 3rd power, 2401 is also 7 to the 4th power. So it's unlikely that's a weird coincidence here. On Halo Reach's Pillar of Autumn, during the cutscene where you are about to board the Pelican, Six and Keyes are briefly distracted by another Pelican getting gunned down right next to them. However, in the gameplay, right before you go and activate that cutscene, you can actually see the extra Pelican just hanging here right below the sight line of what you would normally see. I don't know why it's hanging here, but it is there, and you can totally see this Pelican before it appears in the cutscene and crashes. Also, on this level, have you ever taken a closer look at some of the action going on way down at the bottom of this open expanse? There's a bunch of warthogs and scorpions and ghosts moving around very, very quickly. It almost looks like they're doing donuts and not really fighting, but hey, you look at them for a while, it's kind of a funny quirk to think about. In Halo 3 ODST on the level Data Hive, you may have noticed that Virgil, or the superintendent, was doing everything in his own power to try to prevent the corrupt police officers from gaining access to the Hive's core. And while we do see little snippets and hints that Virgil is actively trying to stop them, we actually can see one of the victims who died to Virgil's own hands at the very beginning of the level by turning to the right and going over to this door. You can see that Virgil slammed the door shut on a officer and put a stop to his raid right there. Halo 1, 2, and 3 all have one very specific thing in common. Their shotgun shells all have a secret image of a hippo on them. Apparently this was like an ongoing joke at Bungie where developer Matt Soul had this little love for hippos. There's even old images of him with like a hippo stuffed animal all the way back from 2001. And apparently this was also an ongoing joke way back during the marathon days before Halo. So it's no surprise that Halo 1, 2, and 3 would see some little hippo action hidden in there. On top of that, we also know that there's a secret hippo on the level Headlong if you go up the construction building and look here. And in Halo 3, in the dirt on the ground on Foundry, you can see the hippo here as well. Who knows, there may be some more hippo Easter eggs still buried away in these older Halo games that haven't been discovered just yet. On Halo 4's Mammoth level, where you normally are just chilling there, at the beginning of the level, Lasky will talk to Master Chief for a bit, and one thing that not a lot of players do is actually just follow Lasky after the dialogue's done and the Mammoth actually starts moving. But yeah, he'll just straight up vanish into thin air if you keep an eye on him long enough. Here's one that not too many people talk about, but in Halo 4 on the level Forge Island, if you grab a sniper rifle and you stare straight up into the sky and kind of look through the sky, you can actually see the ceiling of this planet that you're in. Now this can actually be one of two things, and I can't really find too much detail about specifically what we're seeing here. Now technically these islands are based on an area found on the planet Requiem, which is a shield world, meaning that it would have this like outer shell that could potentially be visible, which is very possible what we're looking at right here. Or alternatively, Forge and multiplayer, especially in Halo 4, are supposed to be a part of a simulation inside of the Infinity. So it is also possible that technically the barrier we're seeing is a part of like the simulation that the Spartans are in. Either way you interpret this lore here, it is interesting seeing a map like this that you wouldn't normally personally think is actually indoors, technically, being indoors, technically. One of the interesting little nods to Bungie's older game Marathon in the Halo series was Guilty Spark having the Marathon logo located in his eye. However, in Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary, the first project done by 343 and Saber Interactive, this design was changed for the anniversary graphics and removed the reference to Bungie's previous title. Okay, now this next one is kind of new to us because we haven't really played too much of Halo Infinite's multiplayer since the launch, but the new Halo Infinite map, Oasis, is actually heavily inspired by an older Halo 4 map known as Exile, or at least that's what it is inspired by according to 343 Industries multiplayer designer. Over in Halo 2 Anniversary, you may notice in the anniversary versions of the cutscene, the Prophet of Mercy tries harder to press the buttons in his chair in a last effort versus the original version of this cutscene where he kind of tries to do it, but it's never really focused as much on it. Something you might only pick up if you watch in the anniversary versions of the cutscene. But even more interesting than just that is if you zoom in on the Prophet of Mercy in anniversary graphics, he looks like this versus old graphics. He looks like this. I actually never even realized his body was just laying there at the beginning of the level High Charity in Halo 2. So it was kind of interesting when we were getting footage for this because it was a little bit different. Both Miranda Keyes and Thomas Lasky have the same rank as Commander. I never really put Lasky and Miranda Keyes on the same level before, but yeah, I guess that makes sense. In the lore for Halo Reach, the grenade launcher is actually the oldest manufactured weapon that the UNSC still uses, being manufactured all the way back in 2263, which means it was in use for almost 300 years before the Halo games take place, which is kind of wild to think about. Okay, we all know about the Rex Easter eggs that show up in various places in the Halo games. You can find it here in Halo Combat Evolved, you can find it here in Halo 2, and also over here in Halo 2, and those are cool. There's achievements associated with them, but did you know why the Rex thing is actually an Easter egg? It's actually a reference to the programmer Tyson Green, whose gamer tag at the time was Ferex, and maybe because like Tyson and the ending in Rex is like a play on T-Rex, and thus the Rex Easter eggs have existed in Halo. Also, on the Halo 3 level, The Storm, there's an elevator you can take to bring you up to the upper level that you can use to fight the Scarab with, something we didn't know until we started making Halo content. The Halo 3 achievement Vanguard for getting the par score on the level The Covenant is actually a reference to an alternate name for the Arbiter's role, Vanguards of the Great Journey. And honestly, we all know the Arbiter was definitely the best Vanguard of the Great Journey because he put the Great Journey to rest right over here. The company African Trust first appears on an ATM on the Mombasa Streets levels in Halo 3 ODST, though it retroactively was added in Halo 2 Anniversary's graphics on the level Metropolis, along with some other little references to ODST here and there, specifically references to Virgil, the superintendent, who obviously didn't exist when Halo 2 came out, but was added in for Halo 3 ODST, so now he was retroactively added back in Halo 2 Anniversary. The elite you encounter towards the end of the level The Maw in Halo Combat Evolved, when you make your way to the elevator after blowing up the engines, actually isn't just some random elite that you encounter. He has full lore associated with him. His name is Zuka Zamami? His name is Zuka Zamami, and he is actually one of the characters featured in the book Halo the Flood. And when you switch to Anniversary graphics, he actually has different armor than the other elites in Halo Combat Evolved, which is a really interesting attention to detail I'd never noticed before. When you look outside the windows on the level Foundry in Halo 3, you can see this Traxxas factory that is actually located very closely to the Traxxas factory from the Storm. So it's likely that Foundry is really close to the Storm level, even though they're based on the same like structural setting for the buildings, just with different lighting. Still an interesting attention to detail here. Okay, in the end cutscene of Halo 3, you can actually hear and see Stacker leading the Marines doing that whole like 21 gun salute. However, what's really interesting is if you actually pay attention to the memorial itself, over here you can see a picture of Stacker, suggesting that he died, but he's also seen just like standing right here doing the whole thing. It's just kind of a little funny. Also, if you take a closer look at this memorial, there's a few other details you might have missed out on. Like right here, you can actually see some of the Marines that are found in the Combat Evolved manual, just kind of plastered on here, paying some respect. And also, Chip's Dubbo is on this memorial, though he also allegedly survived according to the lore. On Halo Reach's firefight level installation 04, if you go go inside the buildings, you can't actually make your way into the lower section of the level that you would normally in the Halo Combat Evolved campaign level version of this. Though, if you stand at this ramp long enough, eventually Guilty Spark will randomly show up, which is kind of a really interesting and unique Easter egg for something found in Halo Reach. You can even see that it's more interesting by the fact that if you get close enough to the door when Guilty Spark's there, it'll give you the option to swap weapons with your ally for a focus rifle. No idea why this happens, and you can't actually swap the weapon out, it just shows up on the screen. Halo 3 ODST had the campaign, but it also had the firefight that took locations from the campaign. And some longtime Bungie fans noticed that the firefight level Last Exit looked oddly familiar. Now, it is posted on Halopedia that Last Exit is a remake of the survival map from Marathon to Durandal, another Bungie game before Halo. We thought that was really interesting. So we loaded up on the survival map and looked around, and I mean, I guess it looks similar. I mean, maybe there's some homage here that is kind of there. I can see some similarities, but I don't know. Nonetheless, this is like touted as an Easter egg. I don't know if it should count, but it's something that's been shared online. Halo 3 ODST is also the first main Halo game to let you use a flamethrower against the Covenant. Halo 3 only let you use the flamethrower against the Flood, and the flamethrower weapon was cut from Halo Combat Evolved's campaign, so that's never actually been a thing to happen. All the way back in the early Marathon days, there was a special challenge that fans would come up with to beat the Marathon games in different ways, like beating the game without shooting a weapon and using melees only. People would then upload the replays of themselves playing through the game this way, and eventually the term Vidmaster came out of that. Later on, when Bungie was trying to make a road for Halo 3 players to get the Recon helmet, they took the term Vidmaster and introduced a series of 7 achievements that were all really hard, but would give you a road to unlock the Recon armor. Specifically, the achievement called Vidmaster Classic comes directly from the Vidmaster in Marathon, as it is the classic achievement of playing through the game without firing a weapon, this time transposed to a campaign level where you have to beat a level on legendary difficulty without firing a weapon. Also, another interesting note, back in the old days before Halo 4 released, Bungie.net did an official poll to gauge which Halo achievement was supposedly the hardest one. And the achievement that got voted the hardest to achieve was the Vidmaster Endure achievement, which was associated with heroic firefight difficulty, which was already really hard, followed by a tie between Vidmaster Deja Vu and Vidmaster Annual. Also, just to show the scale of how massive Halo was back in the day, within 1 week of Halo 3 ODST releasing, 60,000 players had completed the 7 hardest achievements unlocking the Recon armor in Halo 3. This kind of goes to show how massive Halo 3's multiplayer was, and still was 2 years after the game came out, and that was only the smallest top echelon of players who were able to achieve these incredibly challenging achievements. And yeah, 60k people in the first week. That is crazy. Now, of course, this was pre-Modern Warfare 2 days when there wasn't as much competition for first-person shooters, and obviously with the release of Halo 3 ODST, which sold 2.5 million copies in the first 2 weeks, it does make sense that there was a huge interest in Halo 3's multiplayer, which came with ODST, and it brought a ton of players back to Halo 3. This next one's also really interesting, something you may not have noticed. If you look at the list of best-selling video games of all time, you get obvious ones: Mario, Tetris, Pokemon. Makes sense. But if you scroll down to the third category, which are game franchises that sold at least 50 million copies, Halo sits right in the middle of this category, underneath the Tom Clancy franchise, but still above Mortal Kombat, with 81 million sales as an estimate here. However, the one thing I found very interesting is that kind of rearing up right behind Halo, catching up quickly in a few spots below, is the Animal Crossing franchise, which has 73.3 million sales. Just saying, I make Animal Crossing content over on Rocket Elijah, so I only included this one for the shameless plug. If we look across all of the Halo 3 multiplayer maps, you'll find that cold storage is actually set on Installation 05, the ring from Halo 2. That's fine and dandy and all, but this is actually the only multiplayer map in all of Halo 3 set on the Halo ring from Halo 2. The bomb that you arm in the level Crow's Nest on Halo 3 is actually a makeshift bomb made specifically out of a fuel tank and some explosives. You can actually find a similar fuel tank hidden on Sierra 117. On the flight to the last island on Exodus in Halo Reach, the civilian transporter that gets shot down actually explodes like 2 frames too early before it actually physically gets hit. On Halo 3's The Storm, you can see Traxxas right here, and that's just like a industrial company in the Halo universe that is drawn from the name of the AI from Marathon. But Traxxas shows up a couple other times, like for instance in Halo Infinite. If you look closely at the fire extinguishers right here, look at that, it says Traxxas. There's some big conspiracy out there that like Traxxas is the center of the universe or something. I don't fully understand it, but it is a theory, I think. So yeah, look, it's like X-Files music or something. Also, I don't know if this was just a weird glitch that occurred to us, but Luke and I were getting footage earlier of the Arbiter's shoulder for the fact we talked about, and when we were playing on Uprising, we decided just to jokingly run through the level on Legendary just to see how far we got. We died practically immediately, but then when we respawned, because of the Legendary difficulty rules, and if one player dies, both players are considered dead in Halo 2, Luke walked off the map, and I jokingly followed him off the map, and then as we were falling, we assumed we just fall to our death like normal, and then all of a sudden we just didn't die. I don't know if this is like an MCC glitch or something that's just wrong with Halo 2, but yeah, we just survived this fall randomly, and we didn't know what to do. We like walked around. We did have acrophobia on, but usually acrophobia will still give you the timer deaths if you fall for too long. So we ended up going and exploring this whole area that's deloaded, that's typically from the level The Great Journey, but now we were on the Uprising version and it's pretty much the same. The bridge isn't really here, and we were able to go inside the area that Johnson normally explodes with the Scarab and see what the building looked like before, you know, it gets destroyed, and that was kind of neat. Okay, so what did you guys think of some of these details? Tell us which ones you were the most surprised about. Tell us how many you actually did know. If you say that you knew every single one of these on this list, I think you're maybe not being the most truthful person. Huge thank you to our patrons for supporting our channel so much, so often. We really do appreciate you guys. You guys just keep the ball rolling on this. We love you guys so much for that. If you guys want to throw a couple dollars our way, it goes surprisingly further than you probably think. We even get notifications on our phone when people pledge, and it gets kind of exciting. We're like, oh look, this dude just pledged. I don't know, it's neat. Anyways, if you want to do that, there's a link in the description down below. That's it for today though. We'll see you all next time with a brand new video.